Hi, everybody. Today is Wednesday, May 26th, and you are at the Kubernetes WG K8s Infra bi-weekly meeting. I am your host, Aaron of Sigbeard, also known as Aaron Krickenberger, also known as SpiffXP at all the places. We're all going to adhere to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct during this meeting, which means we're going to be our very best selves. And as this is a publicly recorded meeting, you will be able to see this posted on YouTube later. If you have a problem with the conduct during this meeting, please reach out to conduct@kubernetes.io, where you're also free to chat with me privately on Slack or via email. Okay, with that, I'm going to go through our recurring topics first and ask if there are any new members or attendees who would like to introduce themselves so we can get to know you.
So hello all. I'm sort of new to this. My name's Tyler, and I am interning at Google under Linus. So Linus is my host. And basically, I am looking to probably do a few projects, but my first on the list is removing Bazel from the image promoter, the container image promoter. And we'll see how long that takes. And from there on, I'm just looking to help out and be a part of this stuff.
Welcome aboard.
That sounds awesome. Welcome.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Yeah. Also new here, Jim D'Agostino. I work for Synopsys, specifically the Black Duck software part of Synopsys. Just looking for a way to give back in the community, and saw Tim's tweet about this group, so I'm here to help. We run all Google Cloud, so hopefully I can help in some ways with what I do today already.
Awesome.
More brains. We're like zombies. More brains.
Yeah, that's welcome, Jim. Really appreciate you showing up. So I'm going to move to our next recurring thing, which is to go take a look at our billing report and see if anything looks wildly surprising in it. Since I don't have Tim here, we're not going to compare it against the actual GCP console, but at this point, it's basically, I trust these numbers just as much. So over the past 28 days, we spent, about $100 and change. And, as usual, I don't have a ton to say here. Typically, during this part of the meeting, we might have a discussion if things are suddenly going up and to the right very unexpectedly. But this to me looks like a pretty periodic, people are busy getting Kubernetes artifacts from us and using our CI to contribute to Kubernetes. Are there any questions here?
You might want to make
All right, cool. I'll stop on that. So I unfortunately didn't have time to go through and do action item scrubbing of last meeting. Was there anything that anybody had from last meeting that they wanted to follow up on today? Or shall we just go to open discussion? Okay. The first item here is about migrating to managed certificates for K8s.io. Is somebody here who put that topic on? Okay, I thought that might be the case. So I'll just show it. Tim Hawken and Arno Mookham have sort of reacted to yet again, we've gotten big scary emails from Let's Encrypt about some of our certificates expiring. This seems to be due to issues we've had with Cert Manager not quite playing well with dual stack support, providing both IPv6 and IPv4 addresses for all of our ingresses. So Tim set up an experiment to use GKE's managed certificates, CRD basically, and that seems to have worked. So at some point I noticed he and Arnaud just were like migrating things whole hog. So I've updated this issue to indicate which apps that are running on the AAA cluster, where we run most of our public stuff, have been migrated over to use these and which apps remain. I believe the intent, once we're done with this, is to remove Cert Manager from the cluster. There's a part of me that's a little sad about not using like a fully open source thing and instead leaning on sort of a proprietary hosted solution. But at the same time, if we don't ever have to like jump on certificate renewal stuff again, I'm totally fine with that. And then I think that maybe just since Ricardo is here, I wasn't sure if this means that the work that Ricardo, you had been doing on like monitoring and providing potential alerting on the freshness or staleness of our certificates was going to be obviated by this, or if it was still relevant.
Yeah, no, it's not relevant anymore. Actually, I have 3 PRs. 2 of them are about Cert Manager, and one is related to actually using the Google Cloud Monitoring for alerting. I guess that at least the Terraform manifest for monitoring is interesting, as it uses it can be used to monitor any certificate, not only the ones from the cluster. So was something that I was discussing with Tim in the past in our channel. Yeah, this one, yeah, because it can use the uptime ping or something like that from GCP to monitor the certificate's expiration. So at least if something went wrong, we also with the managed one from Google, we are gonna get alerted as well. I just need to review. I am seeing that Arnaud left some comments. I'm just trying to fix my schedule again.
Okay, that's totally fine. Yeah, looking at this now, I remember I had a nit that like at some point here, if we think we're going to start using Terraform to provision more and more things, I want us to have a chat about how we're going to like organize everything. Because right now things have kind of organically grown, and I've been okay with the fact that most of the Terraform is constrained to one directory that manages our clusters. But okay, thanks for that update. I appreciate it.
I will close the other ones as we are moving to the manager.
Okay, that's fine. I pinged them all from that issue, and I figured I'm gonna treat this issue as like the umbrella issue, and I'll go through and close out stuff that's linked from this once we're all wrapped up.
Yeah, cool.
Preemptively do it. That's cool too.
Yeah, I will do that. That's already open. Thank you.
Great.
I'm interested. Is the HTTP 01 validation being used with Cert Manager, or is it DNS 01?
It's HTTP 01.
I believe I've had the same issues on HTTP 01, but if you were to try switching to DNS 01, then I think that those issues would go away.
Yeah. I have discussed that with Tim, but I guess it was on the mailing list or on Slack. But I guess the main problem is how much we wanna trust the delegation of the DNS to something running inside our cluster. This was the discussion. If we really want to add the keys that can manage our DNS entries, because actually what I've suggested was, hey, why don't we just issue a wildcard and use for everything? And that's the same case, right? Because you can issue a wildcard with DNS, but the problem is that we don't trust too much this, like having these keys inside our production cluster. So this was the main discussion. That I guess that can be revisited later, but now it's mostly because of this.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I'd say if you want to dig more into the details of it, Ricardo definitely knows a fair amount, and then Tim and Arnaud and Munners. are also good people to talk to on Slack. All right, so I stopped sharing my screen because I think we're basically good to go there. Next up, I wanted to hand over to CloudU to talk about updates on making sure that registries used as part of Kubernetes CI are K8s Infra registries, basically community owned instead of Google owned.
Yeah, it's been something that I've been working on and off again. So for the first item there, for the Kubernetes E2E test images, there was only one left remaining there, which is the CUDA vector add image 1.0. Basically for that, I basically had to go back in the Git history to fetch whatever that image was beforehand. And I've just added it as it was then again. So it's pretty straightforward. I think I also mentioned, I mentioned from which Git SHA I got the image from. And basically we're using the same mechanisms as the other HTTPD and Nginx images to basically have the CUDA new image and the CUDA old image. So that's the only image left for that registry. I've already added a job for it. We only have to wait for this pull request to merge, basically. After that, it's going to be promoted and then simply replace it into the Kubernetes test utils image manifest.go. But yeah, as for the other one, that's a bit more interesting. Apparently this got closed. I think this is because of the main branch rename. It might be, I didn't close it myself. But it might have been, it also says it's closed, it's also merged, but it's obviously not true. Anyways, the question here was that if we can actually have privately authenticated registry we can push images to and then use it into E2E tests. There's one particular scenario which is conformance and something that we might actually have interest in. I didn't actually get to read the last comments you've posted.
So I can recap real quick. Let's see, where did I put it here? Yeah, so basically right now with the way that we have K8s.gcr.io set up, it's like the service that backs it is incapable of simultaneously serving some images publicly and some images privately. So if we want to get to a world where every single image used in our E2E tests lives in the project's registry, like in prod, where it's promoted, and eventually, it'll be mirrored. We got to dig into this. It's sort of a requirements gathering thing for the II team about well, so does it even make sense to have try and make one single registry that supports both public and private images, or should we consider having two cross-cloud registries, one that's for public, one that's for private, or do we do something like just take the hit and use a private registry and just leave it hosted in GCR? And so people who are running conformance tests that use whatever the hard-coded key is in Kubernetes source code to verify that yes, their Kubernetes clusters can pull from a private registry, they'll just hit Google, they'll hit GCR. I'm not, I don't have a strong opinion on it right now. But I feel like it's something that needs to be untangled or looked at. Does that make sense?
I thought we only had to make this particular bucket private and that would be enough, but I might be wrong. But yeah,
Yeah, I think it was like we could, that's why I think I was getting at, like, we could make a project that just makes this bucket private, and then just this registry is private, and that's great. But then that means uh not I want us to get to a world where like all of the images that are used as part of Kubernetes CI are in the cross cloud registry that we're trying to work towards, so that if somebody needs to get all the artifacts, they need to effectively stand up a Kubernetes cluster and then make sure it passes conformance. They can do that using like a single registry. But since some of the conformance tests use a private registry, maybe that's not possible. And so then it's like, if we just have, okay, we'll just have one private bucket, one private registry, like, should we talk about making that private registry also a cross-cloud thing that the CNCF hosts and all of the different mirrors and cloud providers host that? Or do we just say, we'll just leave it here in our Google organization, right? And I'm fine just using the one-off project approach for now. If we do that, it doesn't seem like it's a staging project because it's not so much temporary. So I think I just wanted opinions from people other than me on this one.
Trying to coordinate the multi-cloud solution, for example, for like the Amazon registry and the Microsoft registry and other ones to have the same authentication method for the same creds, I think would add an undue burden to the community as far as running our conformance tests.
Yeah, probably.
I think it's okay to have this one-off, have a bucket that is private, and we have the way. What might make sense is to have one at the registries and test the different. It's a little bit of testing the cloud providers, but making sure that Kubernetes can pull authenticatedly in 3 different ways, maybe, and just make sure that the 3 different providers that we communicate to use the most popular ways of pulling private, because it's not just authentication, it's the ways of authenticating.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just been like low on my priority list to come back and like just say, well, we're doing this. So if somebody else has a really strong opinion on what we should do, you're welcome to post it on there and just drive us forward. I don't think I'm going to object too much. Yeah, I don't know. The only other headspace I was in was from like an air gapping perspective. If somebody wants to test an air gapped cluster, I don't actually know how much people are actually setting up a private air gapped registry and a public air gapped registry that they can conformance test against. So anyway, do you have any more questions on this, Claudio?
No.
And I think the other PRs are basically related to this thing.
Yeah, pretty much. The only one that's a bit more is the one that also adds the Windows on a server image into KK. Also as the Alpine, I guess that could be removed. The idea is that if we do not have this private registry, we basically have to maintain our own registry just for the Windows CIs, so we can actually pass the test since it's conformance, right?
Yeah.
So at the very least, having this merged upstream, then someone else in the community can easily build it and push it to whatever registry they need it to be in. But I can remove the Alpine image from this as well. But yeah.
All right. I'm commenting on these just to kind of bump them up in my history. I've been behind on sweeping through reviews, so I'll try to take a look at these in by the end of the week.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for continuing to push on this. Yeah, at some point, I do plan on coming back and trying to get us to push to close out all this stuff before we start getting anywhere near code freeze for V122. Okay, I'll stop sharing and I'm gonna hand off to Caleb. Now, Caleb, since you're running a demo, I'm guessing you might want the ability to share your screen. Is that correct?
Normally I might, but not today, and I'll show you why.
Okay.
If you all wouldn't mind jumping on that demo.io sandbox, we'll all bring up the presentation and just don't touch it, and you'll see why.
Don't touch anything.
It's very magic, and can I just get a round of thumbs up? Thank you for sharing as well. That's also good.
Yeah.
So I'll start the presentation now if everyone is all good with that. Everyone got the page lit? Cool, sweet. All right. Yes, I've done some stuff on registry.k8s.io and preparing a few implementations. So we have two candidate implementations right now. So we've got one using Envoy and one using Artifact Server. So yeah, let's start off. These are my ingresses for today. So you're currently on demo Artifact servers, where Artifact Server will be. There's also a distribution instance, and then there's Envoy, and we won't worry about the last one. But these are the URLs we'll be looking at. Ooh, that didn't display at all. If you'd like to jump into the teammate session in the backend, please copy and paste this link in the terminal, and you will join to be able to see what I can also see.
Without the web one, it'll be hard for him to see.
Yeah, that's a bit annoying.
Generated.
I don't think I can.
Okay, sorry.
Not yet.
Put it in chat.
Can
Can you grab it and put it in chat?
I think we have 3 people joined at the moment. I'll also put this in the channel. I'll just continue on from the slides. Here's the SSH one. Cool. Let's go through and take a look at the rest of the presentation. So, ooh, that's fun. Envoy. So let's talk about the Envoy implementation. So here is some listen discovery service. This is some basic bootstrap. It's a partial configuration. This allows us to do things like this. So here we have some Lua code that handles the rewrite. So the first 3 lines you see here, the first one is the default host, second one is the secondary host, and then the third line is the IP address that we're going to change the host based on. We're going to say on every request, we will start off with a default. I'm going to grab the xreal IP from the ingress controller, and then here is where the actual business logic would find its way. So this is where all of the matching on ASNs and all of that would happen. But for this demo, we're saying if the IP is localhost, we're going to use the second address. And then we need to do a get, because 302s only work with head and get as far as I'm aware. And then we're writing a status of 302, and then writing the location and a body. And that's the basic implementation for the Lua filter. I realize I'm going through this quickly, and if anybody has any questions, I've got the chat open and I can answer them. Thank you, Ricardo. This was a fun demo to put together. Yes, so what you can also do is you can take this request and we can take a look at what the response will be. So if you would like to copy this, you're welcome to. I'll give you maybe 10 seconds. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'll also paste it in the chat for ease of access. Ooh, that is not the right thing. There we go. There's the curl command. So what I see is, oh, it's kind of cut off on your screen there, Aaron. So the in my environment, this pairing environment that you've joined in with a teammate session, we get distribution. And then if you're anywhere else, you will get the k8s.gcr.io URL redirected. So that's what you see there. I'm presuming it is giving you the second one for everyone. If it's giving you the first one, I'm very scared, but I'm pretty sure it will give you the second one as per the logic. Okay, you can even pull a container image. Go ahead and pull pause if you like. So yeah, it just does the standard redirecting. It works as you'd expect.
It won't reduce costs today because it's all hosted inside the II sandbox.
That's right. So I've pasted the link for Docker pull in the chat, so feel free to run that. And I'll move on to the next slide. If you'd like to learn more about the implementation, please check out this blog post. This isn't a new one, but this goes through all of the details on the implementation a bit more than I'm going through right now. So yeah, that's where you can find that. Let's talk about Artifact Server. I like it. Let's take a look at it.
Who came up with Artifact Server?
I am glad you asked. That's our friend Justin, who is also on the call. So I've currently got a PR, which I'll talk about later on after I've gone through discussing the implementation. So yeah, I've got a proof of concept config. So what this says is we're gonna, actually I'll start at the third one. What it says is if there are no conditions, we're going to default to falling back on k8s.gcr.io. So when we hit Artifact Server, we're always going to go to that if we don't do anything special. And then here, what we're saying is if the IP matches a particular IP address, again, very basic for this demo, then we're going to go to distribution. Otherwise, if the path is /kops, we're going to take you to Kubernetes. So this is the last one is especially important for handling the artifacts and not just the way that registries work. So that is the configuration. And then here's the logic. This is not thorough logic. It works for the demo. So we're selecting a backend. So on every request, we don't have a backend decided. And so we're going to pick the first one. And then we're going to pick the last header that matches, if there is one that matches. And we're going to pick the last backend that matches, if there's one that matches. So if you were to bring this up using these set of commands, then that might work. Using, yeah, it works for the demo. Yeah, I was saying if you were to hit against this, it will go in the order of, in the configuration, it will go k8s.gcr.io if we match the header, then distribution, and then the path kops. So that is the implementation, and I have brought up Artifact Server. I'm currently in the teammate session. I believe Bono has dropped a link to that, if a web link, if you wouldn't mind connecting as well, Aaron.
I did put it in there.
Thank you.
Oh, that was, yeah, sorry, thank you. Thanks, Aaron. Cool. So I have Artifact Server running right here, and I brought it up with the commands. So what you can do is curl against it using the following command in the presentation that I've got up right now, which I'll also drop in the chat. And for you, it will give you k8s.gcr.io. But for me, because I ran this inside of this pairing environment, it's giving me distribution. So
one person hit it.
We have someone has hit it, so that's good. Pulling from somewhere. Yeah, it's resolving things. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm hitting you from a cloud shell.
Sweet as. So yeah, we're pulling pause. It's pretty cool.
More details on pause later today.
Yeah, the foreshadowing. So that's cool. So we've just made a request through artifact server redirecting to a particular address, which is specified in the configuration. And we can also, yeah, this didn't, I changed one thing really a few moments ago, and then I don't know what happened with my configuration, but by hitting /kops, it's meant to, if I run it manually.
This artifact server won't have cops.
Ah.
Right? Artifact server is only going to have.
I know what's happening, why that's giving me a 404, because it's first matching on the IP address. So if I run this in my pairing environment, it's not going to work. But if you run this command remotely, that's currently in on the presentation, which I will also drop in the channel, it will give you a thing saying access denied. That's a response from Amazon. That means it worked. So that's a good thing for once. What's that?
There's something on the chat. I'm just kidding.
That's the response. Yeah. So, okay, that's interesting. Somehow it's matched on the path /kops. Appreciate your words, Justin. Yeah, I would like to take a look at the error that Aaron has gotten later on. I'll just save that for later because that is really confusing to me. Moving on in the presentation, I have a PR available, and this is the link to the PR. If you would all like to jump on it at once, that would be wonderful. I'll also copy a link into my section of the document. So this is, it's still put for do not merge, so keep that in mind. I would appreciate any review just to say if my implementation is good or not. But the main thing that I'd like to know is which path that we should go down. Should we be using Envoy or should we be using Artifact Server? I have good thoughts between both. So I don't know if this is the right time to discuss that, but I would like to discuss that at some point. That's the presentation.
Go back to the presentation. There we go. Justin, I see you have your hand up. I'll stop my share.
Awesome presentation. Thank you. Awesome machinery and good to see this stuff. And thank you for moving Artifact Server from very basic to something more awesome, which is great. I imagine on the Envoy versus Artifact Server or Go code, I imagine that will probably depend on how hard it is to do the CIDR mapping stuff, which I imagine depends on some of the analysis that you probably are also about to talk about later on. So, but I think that the CIDR mapping is going to be the real pain point here.
Yeah, I think Aaron has his hand up.
Yeah, I raised my hand. How do I lower my hand? Whatever, I'll figure it out. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have strong opinions that your demo made Artifact Server look cooler because it seems like it unifies image and binary serving, and the configuration is a lot easier to understand. And I appreciate how live this was and how much of the details we got to walk through. There's a part of me that still feels like I may just not be involved in this enough, but I still feel like I'm kind of missing the big picture of like what what the trade-offs are that we're talking about here. What is it that we're intending to throw off to? Are there any sort of weird authentication mechanisms that we need to be aware of? What are the critical user journeys that we're trying to address here? So like, what are the test cases that we're gonna throw at this and stuff? Like I feel like this is awesome from a proof of concept perspective, and since I'm a biased action guy, I'm mostly going to be like whichever one it looks like you can get up and running most completely, most quickly. But at some point, I feel like I'm kind of lacking, like, you know, something in the scope of a proposal or a cap or something that's got like nice boxes and arrows that helps us understand sort of the flow of traffic and what's actually getting hit when. Puts my mind at ease that we're not talking about running our own infrastructure to handle ridiculous amounts of traffic, that we're doing the thing where we're like, you know, handing off to pre-built, ready-made things that are designed to handle large volumes of traffic and stuff. So I don't know if any of that random stuff guides your decision on Artifact Server or Envoy, but like I agree with Justin, it seems like the next big piece would be to figure out how you're going to determine what to hand off to. Because if this would be, if like making that decision is going to be in your critical path, you're going to want to figure out how to optimize that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that is very reasonable to consider that. In terms of it being in the critical path or not, the main thing would be implementing the ASN related stuff. So which ASN are you hit, what source IP kind of thing. I think either one would end up in Go, so it's probably okay because we can just write Go WASM for Envoy and then create a custom image out of that, and then it does pretty much the same thing. But yeah, it just depends on. I think
I don't think the data set's going to be large, and the data structure is going to be fairly small to implement in a library. It says, here's an IP. Give me the 302 redirect destination. Making that as small as possible, and a POC can plug into both of these fairly easily. Written as a Go library.
Yeah, I think so. So
we'll put that on priority.
That makes sense. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just like, I'm trying to understand way more than I need to, but I feel like if I was going to explain this to somebody at the CNCF, I would eventually want to be able to provide them a clear, understandable diagram of like, here's where the traffic is going, here's where all this stuff is running, here's how we're going to be shifting, you know, costs or whatever. Just
we're going to show costs in a minute. But I think if you want the simplest YAML-y style, and that's how we kind of diagram these days, there's a folder that contains the ASN mappings that we're going to try to make sure are accurate. And as best we can from the vendor saying, is this accurate for your ASNs? And that YAML file.
Sorry, I'm not even talking about an ASN. I'm just talking about like the life cycle of getting something from the project. I want to get a thing. Show me the boxes and arrows that describe how I'm going to get to the right place.
Yeah. We'll also do that in addition to the ASN.
We'll make it a easier decision.
Sure, but again, like I'm giving you like my perspective as somebody like Justin and other folks here I know have been more actively involved with implementing, and like I definitely agree we're still to like get that proof of concept going. I just personally still feel like I lack the like, what's the plan?
If I were, the shortest version I can give is we have CIP, the image promoter, and all of our destination, how those promote from staging. All of that up to staging stays the same, but image promoter now promotes to prod, but it would also promote to, let's say, Amazon registry and Microsoft registry, and pick whoever else signs up. It's part of our promotion process to ensure that they exist at these locations. Seems like a way. The other way would be to do caching, though it feels more authoritatively if we push and declare what is there.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to keep us moving and be respectful.
Sorry, I just wanted to quickly
Sorry.
mention, there is an early cap, which I think Brendan and myself worked on. I don't know if it was even a cap, but like a doc. So there is that. The other thing, it wasn't as detailed as you asked. The other thing I would suggest when looking at the request flow is to mark which ones are security sensitive and which ones are not, because I think very few of them are security sensitive, i.e. the first one is security sensitive, and then all the others are basically could be served completely untrusted, I think.
We'll reach out for a follow-up on that, Justin. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, over to Rianne to talk about stuff. You have slides to share. Am I going to click on another link, or should I get you?
We all have different ways.
I'm making you co-host, so you have the ability to share your screen if you need to.
I am not that impressive as Caleb showed us now. This is just simple screen sharing. Okay. Let me show you. Sorry, I lost my Zoom screen. Yeah. Okay, so what we have is we import the data from the data source with this query up here. Then we do a transformation where we basically take the epoch date in the logs, turn it into a real date. We import these tables that we need. The CS referrer actually have the image name inside. So then we pull it, take the CS referrer, we break it up, get the image name as a resource, and then we put the hash in as well. At the moment, we're not using the hash for anything specific. We might later on. So, but the main thing is to see the resources. That was the question last time. And here is pause back. And if you look at the images being pulled, the big blue bar on the left-hand side, that is the amount of the times that pause got pulled in the period from 9 April to 25 May. And that is worth, even though it is only 0.1 megabytes per image, we've got 33,000 gigabytes of data just for pause, and a cost of $5,800. So the top is the top amount of image being pulled by a download volume. And then the second graph that I've got is the highest download cost per image. So this is cost-wise. So every time you'll see cost on the right-hand side. So the most expensive thing being pulled is kubeproxy. So last time you asked what is the point of the data, and I think this kind of shows these are the important things to move cost-wise. That would be the biggest gains. Then the next slide. Basically, I swapped out company names. I've got the top 10 pulling IPs, and Laughing Lion is our top puller of images cost-wise. Basically, everything up to line 8 is all one company's IP address is pulling those. And then if you look at the bottom, this is a pivot table showing which images. Unfortunately, all of them don't fit on the screen, but you'll basically see these are the images. So you'll see for line item 1, you've got $1,700 worth of pull, of which $900 almost dollars is for kubeproxy, and another $800 for node problem delete, and then the other smaller ones for minor amounts you can't see. Friendly Fox, for instance, you can see pulled 4,000 GBs, 249,000 times they pulled HCD AMD 64. So it's just interesting showing the patterns of things being pulled and critically cost. Yes.
It's interesting to see one IP address pulling one image and costing $340. Justin, you got your hand up.
Sorry, yes, well, you're saying there is one IP that pulled this, not like the entire, for example, AWS,
this isn't
this
an
is
ASN.
not,
It's
this
an
is
IP.
just like one machine, like a NAT gateway, for example, in AWS.
Yeah, probably.
But okay,
Single IP.
cool. Thank
So
you.
all of these, unfortunately, I can't match ASNs yet, so that would basically make all of line 1 to 8 go into one line. but I can't match those yet because of the complexities of getting ASNs and IPs to match exactly, because I don't want to put anything here that's not exactly true. So yeah, so one IP address pulled the same thing 240,000 times in just 6 weeks. So I'm sure they've got the exact right copy by this time. Then, yeah, so that's the things that we got. Then just for interest's sake, which is not mightily important, average pulls per day is about 26,000 pulls per 26 million pulls per day from the registries. And that is, then the next steps that we do want to do, at the moment, we're pulling the data manually. Then I run the query against it to transform the data. And then our data goes into Data Studio, so we can display it like that. So our next thing is to figure out exactly how to automate that data. I think Justin, you did the data for the billing, if I'm not wrong. You helped me a lot with information about Data Studio. So yeah, so automation of feeding the data, continue updating, then the transformational automation, and then if there's any suggestions from this group, what else should I show in the data? What other information would be not interesting but really helpful towards knowing what to migrate?
Rather than type it, I will say the billing report doesn't need an ingestion time transform. There is it happens at query time because the transform is very simple. I did upload the script that I had used in the past to like insert this data into BigQuery, or not even script, the program, I guess. I think someone tried that out. I thought you tried it out, but yes, so that might help.
You did share. I'll have a look at that query again. So what I'm going to try is, I think you can do the epoch to date inside Data Studio, so that's simple enough. And then I need to do a regex over the URL for the image to pull out the resource name and pull out the SHA, so or the hash. So I'll see maybe I can do it in Data Studio. If I get stuck, would you mind if I reach out? Thanks. And that will simplify. So we just need to automate the loading of the data so we continue to have the latest.
I can't, I'm trying to think of, like, it's a selfish thing. What looking at that immediately made me ask was, how much is Kubernetes project CI costing? Like, I don't know how far it is to get there, and I don't know how important it is for the purposes of, you know, registry, cross-cloud artifact hosting, but I feel like I want to get a handle on, like, you know, how much of our projects can, like, all the pull requests and all the jobs that we run as a result of that, like, how much are we causing, to sort of differentiate the calls coming from inside the house versus the project serving its community. But I think it's just a curiosity, maybe.
I'm interested in that as well. I don't know the shape of how to grasp those pieces. It would require a deep understanding of all this, like everything, to craft, even to hold it. Because I assume most of our CI is all run within our cluster, but I know there's other pieces as well.
Yeah, I mean, ostensibly, it's, you know, all the images to stand up a Kubernetes cluster, and then all of the images to run tests, which, thanks to the work that CloudU and other community members have been doing, will all eventually be coming from one repo, more or less. And so, you know, a subset of images that we could filter against, and then it's probably a matter of, like, I I don't know. I don't know if because of the magic of mirror.gcr.io and clusters getting to use that in our CI, if requests are going to be looking like they come from those clusters or from other random Google IPs. I don't know. So it's not a super important thing. It's just like I'm thinking of like what's a question I want to answer, and then what sorts of things do I need to find out to do that. That's where my head went. Justin, hand.
It's yes, it's very related to what you just said. The thing which we don't know is well, I mean specifically like AWS moving bits to AWS is 10 times as expensive as moving from GCP. It's 10 times as expensive as moving GCP to GCP or something like that. And so CI is a case of that, but also, you know, people running on GCP are going to be much cheaper. And I think the interesting question from our point of view, looking at all this mirroring, is I think like how much money will it save us if we set up a mirror on, for the sake of argument, AWS or DigitalOcean or Azure, and like how do we prioritize that in terms of, to be blunt, money? Like how much money are we going to save if we do that? Like we have a mirror on GCP, but we don't have one on AWS, and I think that would probably knock that. What would that change? The $145,000 would go to what number if we had a mirror on it on AWS, for example, which I assume is the biggest of the most bang for the buck type thing.
We hope to answer that question in the next 2 weeks by getting that ASN data. There are multiple sources, and finding something authoritative that covers enough of our target audience to be precise has been troublesome. Once we get there, and we, especially for the top, we're going to know who those top ASNs are, making sure within our community we can create a PR that just says, here are the ASNs, can Amazon, Microsoft, and DigitalOcean review. Is there anything we're missing? Is it inaccurate? Because we would love to just let you know how much this is costing you. And then we can anonymize it and say, you know, all the funny names of a list. We'll try to keep those consistent going forward.
That's a good, that would be wonderful. The BigQuery uploader actually assigns tags the cloud provider using AWS and GCP have a JSON resource they publish, and Azure also has one, but they don't publish it. You have to download it by hand. But anyway, there are links. I found them all in a Python project, so I will try to find the name.
Links,
try to
please.
find that Python project and then paste it in chat.
Much appreciated. Eddie?
Yeah, so I think I said this last time as well, but I do work for AWS, so they pay me to work on the Kubernetes project. So anything that I can do or projects that I can push to help get infrastructure costs down, feel free to let me know. Is this something that shipping like release images to our public like registry would help with at all?
I think that's kind of the plan, Eddie. I think it would be good for us to probably have an offline conversation and go through the data with you and give you access to see all the things so that we can be frank and direct with the precise pieces and get that story, you know, that board around whatever the diagram of the life cycle, including deciding when it's coming from Amazon appropriately and using the enterprise grade solutions that service your customers well.
Cool. Yeah, just let me know what I can do.
Will do. We will definitely reach out to you, Eddie.
Cool.
Thanks for reminding us.
Yeah, that sounds great. I feel like Tim Hawken and myself would probably want to be looped in on that as well. If not the rest of the chairs. But yeah, I appreciate the help. I think it's, I don't know. At the moment, I'm not approaching it with great urgency, but I think it, you know, just like we're sort of figuring out how are we going to wire all these bits together, I think we need to figure out sort of what is the engagement model look like for onboarding people into this process or into the club, whatever, into the club. I don't, you know, like I don't know if we're looking at something like how we have like the distributors announce list for people who sort of met a certain bar when it comes to security disclosures and things like that, or if this is something that you know, it's even kind of unclear to me how much of this we want to talk about doing purely at the project level versus purely at the CNCF level, independent of the project. But I agree. It's a great time to have those conversations and sort of figure that out.
Try to keep the chairs looped in to conversations with Eddie.
I just hot cornered myself into a black screen. I think we're at time, unfortunately. So I think Berno and my agenda items are gonna have to wait until next time, unless folks really feel like sticking around. So I want to be respectful of everybody's time.
I feel we're continuing the conversation with Ticket. It was more to get the earlier discussion of what we want to do with Terraform. It's kind of I've got a great way of presenting my infra, and I would just want to see what are we thinking around. We've got our GCE cluster already in one set of Terraform. We've got a different set of Terraform for this now, just to reconcile it. We'll continue that in the tickets. I don't think we need to discuss it here.
Okay.
So
Take a look at the audit and see. I also think for the audit script, having something that's simple to run, and you can point it at project in a similar way.
That sounds good. Okay. Jim, I don't know if any of this helped you understand sort of where you can help or not, because I feel like we've fallen into a bit of an anti-pattern of talking really specifically about some very tactical stuff, and I don't know that you've gotten a great picture of sort of what our roadmap is, what our plan is, where we could use help and stuff.
Yeah. I can imagine it will take a little while to get up to speed, but I'm connecting a few dots here and there. And
right. I am trying to like kind of keep things a little bit groomed. But if you have specific questions, feel free to reach out on Slack. Otherwise, you feel free to like keep sort of soaking it in ambiently. Yeah. I really appreciate people who have experience running a bunch of stuff on GCP showing up, because I mean, I know I work for Google, but I still am figuring a lot of this out on the fly. It's fun. All right. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. And I hope you have a happy Wednesday.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
you.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.